Good morning, Ryan Koopmans. Welcome on VH Berries.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. It's nice to speak with you.
Buildings, buildings, buildings. This is what it's all about.
Yeah, yes, it is. It is. It's been my main focus photographically for pretty much since the beginning. The built environment in general and the way that architecture interacts with the natural world is the main subject matter that I've been interested in most of all.
I would love to retrace the journey of your life, Ryan. So you are Dutch and Canadian, and right now you are living in Stockholm, in Sweden.
Yes, exactly. So I was born in the Netherlands, in Amsterdam, and raised in Canada on Vancouver Island. And then I went to university in Vancouver, and then more university in New York City. And then upon graduating, I started photographing different projects around the world, and very, very frequently traveling and on the road for many, many years. But now I'm based in Western Europe, and I spend a lot of time in these countries as well as Eastern Europe. And it's very exciting and interesting.
Ryan Koopmans, in other terms, you are back in Europe because you were born in Amsterdam, so Amsterdam and Stockholm are pretty close.
Yeah, exactly. It's a very lucky to have a European passport, which gives me a lot of access to live and work in different countries. So I'm very fortunate to have dual citizenship like that. It's very helpful.
So, as you mentioned just before, you are focused on buildings, but the particular term that you are using is the built environment. Can you describe what is it precisely?
So, what I mean when I refer to the built environment is that I'm not necessarily interested in a particular building specifically, or a particular example of architecture, as much as I'm interested in the bigger context. So the way that building or buildings exists within a certain society or cultural place in history, and also the way that it interacts with the natural landscape. To me, the bigger concept that forms is what's most interesting to me, and I call that the built environment, as opposed to the specific building being the main focus, if that makes sense.
And what I found super inspiring about your work, Ryan, is that in these buildings and built environment, at the first look, we can believe that there is no life because it's only a statics element. But in reality, you are capturing hundreds of lives that are living inside the buildings.
Yeah, for sure. So another thing that I find interesting is looking for these small indicators of human existence and human life through a more symbolic or representative kind of way. So whether that's laundry, hanging from a balcony, or signs, or some kind of indicator of human presence, as opposed to actually photographing or documenting the people using the space. That's not always the case. Sometimes I do like to show the sense of scale, by using human figures. But I'm very happy to show the human footprint and the human impact, which is suggested often through the landscape and the landscaping, like how the trees have been manicured or the landscape has been cultivated, shows the human presence without actually showing people themselves specifically.
And concerning the scale and the human footprints, how these ideas of photographing building came from? For example, did it started in Amsterdam in the Netherlands?
Yeah, no. So I was when I was in Vancouver studying at university, I was planning to become an architect. And during the portfolio building process for architecture school, one component of my sort of creative portfolio was photography, which I hadn't spent any time doing before. So for this portfolio, I started creating images and quickly realized that documenting and interpreting architectural space through the camera was what interested me a lot more than, the actual practice of studying to be an architect. So it came from architecture. And then I spent several years focusing on other subject matter, like more photojournalistic work and more commercial work and travel-based work. But then it very much came back around to my initial beginnings, which was architecture. And so therefore I shoot a lot of architectural photography.
And with all these piece of works, you've made a book in 2020 called Vintage, in which you are including your photograph, but also we learned that you had some conversation with political leaders, business personalities. So there is a very interesting links.
Yeah, so the intention of that was to try to speak with different people from different walks of life who experience the city in a different way from one another, and to create this kind of global picture of what different people's experiences in these urban metropolises are. People coming from totally different perspectives and different life experiences and value systems and whatnot. I wanted to mix it all together to sort of reflect the mixed nature of all the different locations that were put together to form the book.
Absolutely. If I quote you, providing a timeless vision of our world that is both contemporary and creative.
Yeah, I think it was the publisher's quote, but I could stand by their quote for sure. That was my intention for sure.
And also through your career, Ryan Koopmans, you've worked for a lot of companies, a lot of newspaper, including some cars and some architecture and some newspapers.
Yeah, I have, and that's been a lot of fun, a lot of great relationships and interesting experiences, and it enabled a lot of traveling, which was really, really great. And as you listed the different types of publications, it was also very much like a broad array of different outlets and types of work. So that's super exciting always, and every shoot was very different. And a lot of fun and interesting experiences with that.
And can you tell me a little bit more about your collaboration with the brand Mercedes-Benz?
Yeah, so I first started shooting, I guess, travel-based stories is how they could be described, maybe 10 years ago. For Mercedes-Benz, and most of the assignments are very much focused on taking a new model vehicle into a particular environment, a particular place or country, and shooting the vehicle as it's being used or it's existing in the actual world. So that's been very very interesting and sometimes challenging and a lot of fun. And then the jobs for Mercedes have also developed into, you know, a more larger established shoots with multiple people and sometimes even video. And they've been an organization that's been a real pleasure to work with, because clearly they're, you know, very professional and have a lot of the best people involved in the different positions that you're dealing with when you're working on a project with them.
So on one side, there is some photograph for the advertisers, for the communication, but were you involved also in the video section?
Yeah, I've created a couple of videos and also been part of video teams where it's been, you know, a larger production involving lots of people. But that's something that's come up in more recent years as the need for video emerged, and my primary focus has been on making still images for sure.
And concerning the still images, I would love to talk about the Wild Within, which is a mix between the still images and the videos, because these are NFTs, so photos that are moving a little bit.
Yeah, exactly. They, I guess I call them, you know, moving images, looping images. And the project The Wild Within is one that I've worked on in collaboration with a Swedish artist named Alice Wexel. And the two of us have taken photographs that we made in this particular town that we've been going back to for several years in the country of Georgia, and then turning those 2D images into 3-dimensional spaces using 3D software and animating the rooms. So it's been actually something that I've been interested in doing for a long time, turning still images into moving stills. So very much like speaking the language of still photography, but adding the element of motion. And I think it really brings a new an extra level to the still image, which is just something that I'm super interested in and excited in pursuing at this moment in time, at least. It's fun to really embrace the new technologies that are available and use them to their maximum potential.
If I understood correctly, Ryan Koopmans, you are the one taking the still images and Alice is the one who is going to make the 3D animations.
So, yes, that's how it has originally, that's how it started. I was taking the images and Alice was using them and turning them into 3D environments. But over the years of going to Georgia, we've been going there together, and she's also been shooting stills with me, and I've also been learning the 3D software. So it's very much a collaborative project that we've been working on. And I think bringing the two different experiences and skill sets and opinions is something that for a project like this is very beneficial.
This is very beneficial, and I truly believe that there is a strong connection between this project and your strong philosophy that is to shoot the unseen.
Yeah, for sure. And, it's also clearly like an architectural subject matter. It's more focused on interiors, which is something that I haven't worked on as much as I have exterior and, images from higher vantage points. But the same concepts of, the relationship with nature and the way that it interacts with architectural space, those themes are really prevalent throughout The Wild Within, as well as my, typical previous work.
So basically, you went in Georgia in abandoned buildings from a bygone Soviet area.
Yeah, exactly. So the buildings from the project The Wild Within, are all former hotels and sanatoriums and different, infrastructure that was created during the Soviet Union and was abandoned upon the collapse of the Soviet Union in the early 1990s. So those buildings have been sitting there for over 30 years now. And they have been slowly taken apart and slowly deteriorating, as well as being lived in by certain people who were displaced from conflicts and nearby political instability. So they've had a very interesting history since the buildings were abandoned to today. It's kind of a mixture of natural deterioration as well as people slowly dismantling parts of them to use the materials for basically their own survival. And you can see very much the human presence in those buildings in the sense that a lot of the electrical wiring or the piping has been removed, or the floorboards, and that human presence is something that is interesting to me as well.
I wonder how far you've been in the post-editing, because as you mentioned, some of these buildings are abandoned, which means that some people can come and do some graffiti on the wall. So do you remove them, for example?
Yeah, in some images I have removed graffiti and other sort of, damage or things that are on the wall. But there is not a tremendous amount of graffiti in those places. At least there wasn't when I first went there, because it was not very well known or not very frequently visited. So the amount of post processing in that sense has not had to be too heavy. And also I come from a more of a documentary photo background, so my instinct still is to not change things in an image as much as possible, even though clearly for this project there's a huge amount of digital manipulation going on, because that's the sort of the point of it being digital art. But if there's something that doesn't need to be removed, it's still in my instinct to not remove it.
It also means, Ryan, that you can include a status of yourself in the middle of the building.
Yeah, exactly. You could, you can do, all different things, especially with the different, software that's available now.
And then you got the ideas to connect these artworks and piece of arts to the blockchain and the NFT technology. So can you tell us a little bit more about how it came to your mind and how it got started?
Yeah, so it was more just a matter of timing because we were creating this work and creating this series, and then the whole world of NFTs emerged, or at least became we became familiar with it because they have been around for several years now, anyways. But about a year ago, we started to learn more about that whole technology and phenomena, and realized that this project that we had just created was a perfect fit for this new means of presentation, because it facilitates or it does really well with moving imagery, because you're dealing with a screen, a computer screen. So it's this kind of work, this project, we would show on a screen anyways, whether there was NFTs existed or not. So it by nature is the perfect medium to show this series. And it just sort of happened to work out that way, that it became a successful project and people connected with it and find the history and the story interesting. And I think it's because it's a combination of real world existing elements mixed with the surreal technology of 3D rendering and 3D design. So it brings together two mediums to create something which at least I find super interesting and fun to work with. And the fact that it's an that this series has been tokenized as NFTs is more of just a coincidence in time that it turned out to be the appropriate platform and means of presentation.
Absolutely. This is fascinating because this is very true, because the story and the meaning that you are telling about these artworks is as important as the artworks themselves.
Yeah. I think so as well. And there's so many different factors that you can bring into this to an image like this. You can talk about the passing of time. You can talk about the social, political history of an area, or the architectural history of a region, and the different concepts and themes that you can link into it go much deeper than just the video file or the digital content itself.
You are on this platform called Super Rare, in which you've already posted 10 artworks.
Yeah, so the platform that we've been minting the artwork is called Super Rare, and their focus is on one-of-one art. So as opposed to releasing a NFT as a series of an edition, like a numbered edition, each piece is a unique individual artwork, and that's what we felt this project was best suited for, was to release each piece as a single edition. And Super Rare has been a great platform. That's really nice to be a part of their their movement in the space.
And I saw that some of these NFT found some buyers. Do you know some of them, or are they totally stranger that just bought them because they love it?
Yeah, no. So you build relationships and friendships with the different collectors, and nobody knows, who. Most people don't know each other, in the real world, at least at this stage, because it's quite new. But people are frequently communicating and discussing like different concepts that each other finds interesting, and basically certain collectors connect with certain artists, and you find a sort of like-minded interest that the collectors are drawn to, and then you form these kind of like online friendships where you're both in this in it together. You both are invested in the work doing well and protecting its integrity, and also just maintaining and ensuring that your artistic goal and artistic vision and integrity is exactly how you want it to be and how it should be.
That's interesting, because on the complete opposite side, in the real life, you are maintaining your own studio in the heart of Stockholm, just next to the Fotografista Museum.
Yeah, exactly. It's the Fotografiska Museum is really cool, and it's nice to have it so close. Of course, I haven't been able to go for a few months because of I'm not sure if they're even open at the moment, but it's definitely a cool institution that is a great thing to have in Stockholm. And I've seen some really, really good shows there before, and I definitely want to go in the near future.
Maybe that in the near future they will expose your photograph of some buildings, for example.
Yeah, that would be great. It's a really nice venue and a great place to exhibit, and they always, have great, print quality and presentation, and I would definitely love to show work at Fotografiska at some point in the future.
So with this blockchain technology, Ryan Koopmans, I believe that you are part of a long-term vision, so you have some plan for the future, I believe.
Okay, yeah, so for the future, I am going to be finishing up this series, the one that we're just releasing the final pieces in the next couple of weeks, and then we'll move on to another series that's already almost completed as well. And the long-term goal with it is to just continue to find projects that are interesting and exciting, and keeping the motivation and the passion and the interest alive is the most important part, and often the hardest part, because that's what takes all the energy. So keeping the focus and intensity and excitement is what the plan is for the long term.
If I understood correctly, you mean that you need to always redefine yourself and the meaning, the why of this passion and job.
Yeah, for sure. Like I don't know if you have to necessarily redefine yourself, but definitely be constantly pushing yourself and challenging what is already there. So through embracing new technology and trying different things and being very flexible and adaptable, but still pursuing your artistic vision, so to speak. That's really important. If it means redefining yourself, then that's maybe something that you have to do at a certain point as well. But for me at least, there's quite a defined intent and vision and trajectory that I at least am drawn to at this point, that I and constantly challenging and trying to, adapt and make better to the changing situations that we're faced with every day.
And it also means to book a plane ticket as soon as possible with this, because with this blockchain technology, you can be everywhere in the world because everything is online. You don't need to be in that specific studio or in this specific building.
True. However, with the 3D software, it's very demanding with the rendering, like the hardware you need, the computer power.
Whoa.
You need to have very, good graphics cards, and ideally you're working on a desktop computer. So there is actually a little bit of like, limitations in your mobility, more so than if you're just shooting still photographs, because then of course that's much more free. But yeah, how I like to do it is go out into the world and create work, create imagery, and then come back to the studio. And, that's when you go through the process of looking at what you've created and then what to do with it, whether it's how to sequence it, how to edit it. Is it going to be in a book, or, make digital artwork out of it, or learn from it and do it again in a different way. That coming back to a studio and assessing the content that you have created when you're away is a pretty useful step in getting to completing a actual project. Because when you're constantly traveling, it's hard to really have the time to reflect on what you have just completed, because there's always the next thing, and then the new material, the new story just builds up, and then they continue to compile onto one another.
And it's also the benefits of working with a team, is the fact to have the possibilities to divide the work.
Yeah, for sure. Especially when you're working with, if you're working with video, that's something where you are in most cases better off when there's several people involved. Someone who's good with sound, someone who's can do the music composition, even edit, do the cutting, or multiple cameras. When you're working with motion and film, or video in general, it is definitely something where a team usually creates a stronger project or product. And sometimes when you just combine, a couple different specialties or a couple different skill sets, that's all you need. It doesn't need to be a lot of people. But when you bring together people who are really good at their particular craft, then that's a way that I find the most enjoyable to create work, if not just completely by myself.
Stronger together. Ryan Koopmans, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure speaking with you.